So I'm going to let Pete Odie take over the session the rest of the day. I'm sure everyone knows who Pete Odie is, but if you don't, I'm going to introduce him. Dave Crane, my boss from OSPR, head of the labs, mentioned, me getting this thing started and stuff. Well, getting something started isn't any big deal compared to keeping it going and going through all the hassles to do that. I think if anything, the success I've had has just been the luck of having, good people come onto the program, and Pete Odie, of course, is one of them. And in fact, I always like to take this opportunity, because back there are some others, Sean, Nathan, Jen, our field crew. In fact, Patty Spindler and I were talking last night, and again, she's a one-person team in Arizona, just like Marianne is in Nevada, and we're lucky enough to have about 13 staff people here in California. And so they all work hard and they all stick. So we have the laboratory people. There's Doug. I always give him a bad time. Doug Post in the back. He doesn't like to be acknowledged at all. And he's got his face in the computer. So he'll be reprimanded tomorrow. And then also the Moss Landing people. I see smiling face of Marco Segala. I mentioned him. And the other lab, so Moss Landing Marine Lab's part of it too. Andy Wren. Oh. And there's poor Angie, who used to be part of the team, but has went on to bigger and better things. But I like to acknowledge some of the people. And Carol Oz sucking her fingers right there with chocolate, who is one of our Region 2 water quality, I like to call them water quality biologists. They call us environmental scientists, but basically. So did I miss anybody else? Well, I'm sure if I did, Pete will take it on. But Pete is, taken over quite a while ago, the duty of, getting the money going, keeping it going, dealing with the state board. He is considered besides being the director of the Water Pollution Control Laboratory where we all work, he's the bioassessment coordinator for the state board. And he gets out there quite a bit, but sometimes he doesn't get the credit that he should. Oh, and there's someone else, the one that's coming in late, right there. That's Jana, and she's Reinerneck, and she's part of our group too. And then we have even a chemist, the only chemist. So we have, in fact, our lab, our water pollution. How many chemists do we have, Jana? Chemists in the water pollution control lab? Oh, and there's Dave, yeah, the head. How many do we have, Dave? Chemists at the Water Pollution Control Lab. Jesus. 30, okay, that's 35. Anyway, I always get criticized for talking about my friends, but anyway, I want to bring up Pete because, again, without Pete, there would be no bioassessment program.
Okay, am I on here? Okay, that's ridiculous, but thank you. And thanks also for Jim, echo what Dave said. 20 years, it's amazing that we're still here after 20 years, and we've come a long way, and with great thanks to Jim for getting this stuff started. So, thought I'd start today with a little acknowledgement of one of the non-perennial heroes out there, little acknowledgement of Lou Reed here, who inspired a lot of us, I think. So, I've been thinking about where we are in the bioassessment stuff, 20 years later now. You saw Karen give a presentation that we finished the technical work. We're just now ready to just sort of wrapping up the policy framework that we're gonna use to implement biological assessment. The goal all along has been to change the way we think about water quality and start thinking about biological integrity and ecological integrity. So you saw Lori's presentation earlier about healthy streams and what healthy streams is part of healthy watersheds. And all that work, I think, we're at a cusp of something really exciting now. Now that we've got some standardized tools and a framework soon for implementing this stuff, now I think we can really start to think about, how do we take this information about the health of specific sites and really transform the way we protect find out where our resources are that need protection and do something for them. And I think that's what's so exciting right now. So the next few talks here are all related to one element of this, which I think is pretty interesting. We've been talking in our group quite a bit about what's next now that we have bioobjectives just on the cusp of having these things. Well, we've been focusing on perennial streams and benthic invertebrates assessment. But we've said all along we wanted to get to a point where we have multiple indicators of ecological condition. We want to do this with algae. We've got a lot of work. Lillian's work on this has taken us, we've been pretty close to that. Eric and company have been doing on riparian vegetative health, the CRAM program, work that we've been doing on habitat. All of these are designed to give us a fuller picture of what the ecological condition of these water bodies and their watersheds is about. Another big area that we're working is called causal assessment or causal analysis. The idea here is that if we see biological impairment, that's fine, but we need to know what's causing it if we want to do something about it. So we're working on a number of our programs that are trying to fill in these information gaps. How do we associate biological impairment with different sources of stress? And of course, again, the work that Lori talked about with healthy streams and healthy watersheds. And then the last big piece, I think, is moving beyond wadable perennial streams and starting to expand our thinking further up into the stream network, into the watershed further. And that's what I want to focus on for a few minutes here. So you saw Marianne and Patty's presentations. Both of these states share California's challenges with non-perennial streams. We have something like 75% of the stream length in the state is non-perennial, so it doesn't flow year-round. We have lots of problems with the maps that are used to generate, to figure out where these things are. So we really have a poor understanding of the hydrology in these systems, and that really limits our ability to assess and do anything about these water bodies as resources. So why would we want to monitor these types of systems, and why do we want to move out of non-perennial stuff? That's the stuff that we spend most of our time in the water quality world focused on, is perennial streams. Well, the first reason is for biodiversity and the conservation value of these systems. A lot of these have high levels of endemism, organisms that are adapted to these types of these habitats, and so there's a lot of unique resources in terms of fish, amphibians, bugs, plants, algae, the whole gamut. There's some really interesting habitats. It's also the interface between what happens on the landscape, what humans do on the landscape, and how it affects our water bodies. So our perennial streams that we're monitoring downstream, a lot of those activities are happening up in the watershed, and a lot of those systems that receive the impacts of those are non-perennial streams. And so we monitor them when you get downstream, but if we could have tools for assessing the integrity of those systems closer to where the activities are happening, that would be very beneficial. And one of the reasons that it would be really beneficial is this thing I talked to before about causal assessment. It gives us the ability to better link what's happening to where it's causing the impacts, or what types of impacts. And the last bit is something that's been an interest of mine, is trying to make the connection. We spent a lot of time, as Jim mentioned, a lot of our work has been for water boards for good reason. But our own agency, just as Dave Crane presented to you, has a very strong mandate or mission. it's, as a trust agency, shares a lot of commonalities with the Water Board about what it's trying to do. And it's understanding this connection, I think, between what's happening in the landscape and what's happening in the water bodies gives us some new opportunities for combining forces and being more efficient there. So you saw the work that's happening in Arizona and Nevada a little bit. We'll see some more about that soon. We have been addressing non-perennial streams in California for a few years. Especially active is the San Diego board, Lillian's work. Recently, Jeff Garassi at across the mountains into the Imperial Valley has expressed an interest there and has we've been starting to work with him on this. Also, the Bay Area, Kevin Lundy, I think I saw here somewhere, is very interested in that too. So there's a lot of interest in different parts of the state. There's been some initial work. It looks pretty promising that we can assess these systems. It's going to take some work, but Rafi Mazur, many of you know, had asked me to mention too that he's going to be leading, I think, a special session at the Society for Freshwater Science in Portland this year. So if you're interested in that, look him up. I'm going to just end here with something I want you to keep in your head. When we're thinking about streams and the difference between perennial and non-perennial streams and what it means for our things, we're really asking a couple questions related to this thing in blue. You know, what does flow permanence mean to the biota? I think we should be asking that question both from a biodiversity standpoint. How does flow permanence affect the biology, who we see there? But of course, we also care about how flow permanence affects our bioassessment tools and our approach to assessing these types of systems. There's some nuance there. You look at things a little differently. But for all of this, I think what we need, or what would really be helpful, is for us to start thinking about streams less in terms of categories of flow, like the classic people talk about perennial streams, intermittent streams, ephemeral streams. I think, but the biology doesn't really see things that way. Organisms don't see things that way. It's a continuum of flow permanence. And I think that is, thinking about it that way will open up a lot of doors to us as we start to assess these. And so that's my lead into our first speaker of the session. I stole his map here, an early prototype of the map. Darren comes to us from the USGS in Reston. He is the chief of the Ecological Synthesis Unit for the NAQUA program. That's National Aquatic Water Quality something or North American Water Quality something or other.
National Water Quality.
Thank you. Yeah, see, some little program in
Not quite
DC.
North
I don't know.
America.
Yeah.
We don't do Canada.
Okay.
We don't do Mexico.
National. All right. So Darren's been working on bioassessment related things for a long time, and his interest in modeling of flows happily coincides with a lot of our interest now. So we're going to be working with Darren quite a bit. So thanks, Darren.